There's been a lot of discussion online, and some of it's tongue in cheek, but some of it's not very nice about Blaine County right now, where people look at everyone who lives there and believes that they're responsible for the spread of coronavirus in Idaho. While it is the hot spot, maybe the epicenter of the disease, you have a lot of people who live there in places like Cary who probably don't have a lot of interaction with people who live in Ketchum. And even in the area around Ketchum, Haley, Sun Valley, Bellevue, you do have some conservative Republicans, and one of them was telling me the other day that traffic goes back and forth. It's not just people from Blaine County coming to Twin Falls County or Lincoln County or Cassia County. People also from here go there. He's joining me this morning. His name is Eric Parker. If you didn't know it, Eric's also a candidate for state senate. But he's primarily talking with us today just about the travel that goes back and forth between all of these interdependent counties. We might call them that. Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're at 8:35. Eric, long time no see.
How you doing, Bill?
There's a lot of places I'd like to think I could be, but I know I can't get there. Travel's a little bit tight. So I'm doing well right here. You mentioned the other day when there was a comment that I made about, I guess I meant it tongue in cheek about Blaine County and walling it off. And you said, a lot of people who live in Twin Falls County come to work in Blaine County on a regular basis. And you said this thing may have been around a lot longer than we realize. And it really would be difficult to pinpoint who brought it to Blaine County or vice versa, right?
Sure. There's a lot of talk right now about how long it's been in the valley. Just from the people I speak to pretty normally, the general consensus is a lot of people had it and are getting over it. I believe my family had it. I can read down the lines of symptoms, and it's almost word for word, right? I don't know that for sure because we didn't get tests. The tests just showed up, and we're trying to save those for people who need to be hospitalized and stuff like that. So a lot of people aren't rushing out to get the test. But the general consensus is it's been in the valley for more than a month or two, and at least a month or two. Some people are saying it was from the end of the ski season there. My thought is a lot of these homes we have up here that we all work on, Lincoln County, Gooding, Jerome, all of central Idaho drives up here to work every day. I mean, there's more Lincoln plates and Twin Falls plates generally during the work hours here than there is 5B. And I'm exaggerating, but we see it a lot. People have come up here for generations and worked on these bigger homes, these higher end homes up in Ketchum and north of Ketchum. And I believe a lot of those houses are second homes from Seattle area, and that was the hot spot months ago. Well, at least a month ago. That was the hot spot in Washington, and it would make sense for those people to try to get away from it. And where are they going to go? They're going to go to their second home in Sun Valley, and bring it here, which is irresponsible. That's the other side of this whole coin. Is I believe we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis, right? We can ask people to not travel. We can recommend that they self-quarantine. But once we actually stop people from traveling, especially to their own property, their own homes, we're violating the Constitution. So it is. I understand that it's a tough situation, but reading on the internet, I just want to stress that we will come out of this. It may be bad. It may not be as bad as they think, but we will come out of it. And I just hope that we can all focus on being neighbors through this emergency. Our hospital is barely running. I believe we have one ventilator. People are being sent down to Twin Falls for hospital visits, and not necessarily the virus. My wife is very, very pregnant, and she we're looking at having to go down there for doctor's appointments and possibly to have the baby. And we don't know how long this is going to go on, right? But she tells me she's worried to drive down there because she's reading about people being doxxed and their cars being keyed and she doesn't want to drive down there, right? I hope that we don't let this fester into ill will amongst Idahoans, because it's going to end and we're going to go back to life, and it's going to be real easy to hold on to these grudges. And I just hope that we can all kind of take a big deep breath and understand we're Idahoans and we're right in the middle of a game. We need to have our head in the game.
Well,
and not
hold on to that thought for a moment. I've got to get to a break, but we'll have more coming up in just a moment. Eric Parker joining us. And again, I want to mention he is a candidate for state senate running as a Republican, and he has a big task ahead. He's trying to unseat the minority leader in the state senate. We'll probably even get him to talk a bit about that too before he wraps up with us at 9:00 this morning. It's 8:40. It's 36. Eric Parker with us this morning from Haley, and that's in Blaine County. If you're aware of that, he's a conservative and a Republican. He is running for state senate against Democrat Michelle Stennett. It's 34 right now. It's 8:43 on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. And I think we need to remind people that not all of Blaine County is a wealthy skier from somewhere in California, Oregon, or Washington, and that a lot of people who we know and live there. Some of them obviously have been around Idaho a very, very long time. Bill Colley with you, too, on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. We're at 8:43, and it's 35. And, Eric, you were just mentioning before the break that, hey, this is all going to come to an end, and you wanted to point out, we all have to still try to get along, and you can't judge somebody because of what it says on their license plate.
No, you really can't. I know a lot of people up here. I've lived up here a long time. My wife's family has been up here for a very long time, and they're conservative. The district as a whole has more Republicans than Democrats. That was one of the things that piqued my interest. There's a lot of conservatives, but more than that, there's working Idahoans, and I think right now it's important to maybe put the red jerseys, blue jerseys down for a minute and get through the ball game here. The main issue we're having is, from the people I speak to, is information. It's just not coming from the state, from the county, even the city. And everybody I talk to says, where is the morning brief? Where is, during the fires, when we have the fires up here, we have the sheriff, the county commissioners, and the Forest Service every morning putting out a brief, how we are, what we're looking at, what's going on. We're not getting any of that, and I think that's a problem, because that's also leading to the uncertainty in people's minds, which is never a good thing.
I gotta mention, we were talking a little bit about the number of people who've been dealing with this, and you think your family may have had some symptoms. There was a story, and it didn't get a lot of traction in this country, but a couple of weeks ago, there was a story that said that even in China, officials believe that perhaps they may have seen their first case sometime in mid-November. So they've backdated the origins of this, and that does not mean that people did not bring it here earlier, because I had a terrible, terrible, painful cough for a week in late December. And I just assumed at the time it was a really bad cold, but it's very much compares to some of the symptoms that I've heard people mention. And I think we have to be concerned about that too, as well, that people may have been walking around with this perhaps far longer than we even realize.
I really believe that's the case. I think we're going to continue to see the numbers spike, but that's only because they're testing now. I think it's been here for a lot longer than we're willing to maybe talk about yet. But and that's the fact. It's not just work that people come to this valley. Recreation. The ski season. The end of the ski season was here. They have a large group of over 500 people from around the world that come ski here, and they were here, I think, around December, January. There's just these instances that common sense would say are quite possible that it's been here for quite a while longer.
Well, you referenced, we talked about this just briefly earlier. You referenced the number of Republicans living in that district, which snakes across some pretty interesting territory. You've got some great wealth, obviously, in places like Ketchum, and yet in places like Gooding, you don't have nearly as much. What motivated you to file and actually decide you were going to run against Michelle?
Well, it wasn't really something I was considering. Our organization, the Real 3% of Idaho, spent a lot of time since I got home at the Capitol. I've really learned and experienced the way things work in that building, and it's not something I was wanting to necessarily do, but her running unopposed was a big part of the decision. I do believe that elections are term limits, and for that to be the case, there has to be a viable opponent to choose from. And with that, I decided, well, you know what, there should be a choice, and that was really just the determining factor. Is I just believe there should be a choice. There's more, like we said, there's more conservatives, Republicans in this district. I think they should be able to have a choice.
I was going to say, you were telling me off air, you actually had a conversation with National Public Radio, or the NPR, I guess maybe local NPR affiliate. That must have been somewhat surreal.
No, that was actually national. That story will be coming out, national NPR. They were very curious about our organization and our outlook on these orders from governors and what we think about the whole situation. So I gave Hannah an interview, and it should be coming out in a day or two.
Did they treat you well?
Yeah, I have. She did, and I think she's fair. We'll see, of course, but you always got to record them when you're talking to them, so you could put the whole story out, right?
Hey, I've got a caller looking to reach us, Eric. Let's see if we can't get the caller on the air. Caller, you've reached KLIX with our guest, Eric Parker. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Eric. This is Mike McFadden calling from up here in God's country, Camas County. And first thing I want to ask Eric is, what were you thinking? Oh my gosh! I know I ran for a seat in legislature last term, and early on I asked myself that a lot. And I want to tell you that we support what you're doing and hope that you actually do get elected, because we think that we need more Republicans in there. And based on what I had seen when I ran for that office, everywhere I campaigned in this great state, I was met with some of the nicest people. Oh my gosh, Lincoln County, Gooding County, Camas, amazing people, and brought me into their homes and welcomed me until I got to Blaine County. And I hate to point the finger, but it's the only time in my life I was spat on in a public setting while cooking for the Girl Scouts to raise money. It's the only place in a parade I had people flipping me off and calling me names in a parade simply for being on a float. And it's also the only place we put up signs where they were destroyed within 24 hours. Not one of my signs survived up there. So this light's being shined on Blaine County. Not all of Blaine County people are this way, but the closer I got to Sun Valley, the more I experienced it. And now the light shined on them, and they're going, "Oh, show some tolerance. We're not bad people, and please forgive us." But they didn't show us the same tolerance and the same forgiveness. So I think it's time for them to look back a little bit and look within and see how they treated the outsiders.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for the call. Eric, how do you respond to that?
Well, there's a couple things there. I totally believe everything he's saying. I live here. I've seen it. The partisanship is scary. But I don't plan on being your average run-of-the-mill candidate. I've been through a lot.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The gauntlet. I don't. I'm up for the challenge, and I'd like to have the conversation. If nothing else, I'm gonna be here to change the conversation a little bit. I think that's what's necessary. The working class that live here in Blaine County. There's a running joke. Where do you live in Blaine County? Well, south of the dump, right? You've got Ohio Gulch as you head north, and I think that it's not fair to paint with such a broad brush, and more than that, that those things may be true, and I believe them, but I'm always going to preach keeping the moral high ground, at least attempting to. I'm not perfect. Lord knows that, but I do, especially in an emergency right now. Like, we can all get together later and point fingers and talk about who's the jerk, but right now we really do have a health crisis and an emergency, and people really are going to die. And the name of the game is Americans, and the name of the game is Idahoans. And if we can center around that right now, at least for a little bit. It's always been the running jokes, the 5B plates, and and then the people up here, the Flatlanders coming up during hunting season, we get invaded, right? I mean, this isn't. There's lots of little irritations throughout life, but we can't focus on it, or it's gonna stay. If we let it in, it's gonna stay. And then the next time we're invaded during hunting season, we're gonna see more tensions. And more people that might be a little more likely to do something stupid. And that's what I'm really worried about is if we don't set it down, it's going to stay. And we can have all those conversations after we get through this. But right now, I'd really like to plead to people's better nature and really ask, what can you do to help your neighbor right now? My campaign. I signed up to do it. I looked at starting to do it, and then Corona's hit. Now I can't. I feel bad asking people for money. I'm not going to do it right now. No, it's so uncertain, and so I really don't know what this election looks like. But right now, I know that I'm more concerned. I got to put on my organization hat and look around and say, what can we do for our neighbors, and what can we do to make sure that our neighbors' rights aren't violated while we're all trying to maintain some health safety, and I got to watch around the state and see what's happening there. And so I really don't know what's going to happen with this campaign. My name's there. If you want a different choice, and if you want conservative representation, my platform is I want to go defend the Constitution. That's what I do, and I want to see if I can do it from that seat. And if you're interested in having a representative who views through the filter of the state constitution and our United States Constitution, then I'm the one. Send me, and I'll defend your rights.
I was going to say, the campaigning is going to be at least postponed probably for a good month, and yet you don't have to worry about a primary, so you have the entire, I think, summer to make that up.
Yeah. So exactly, and so right now we're just trying to focus on getting through this. I'm talking to my connections on a state level and trying to get information. I'm trying to get information from the county of what the needs are. Right. I see a lot of focusing on isolation and a lot of focusing on slowing it down, but what are the actual needs? I mean, we got a hurricane coming. It looks like, if we're to believe what we're told. And what are we doing to board up the windows? Where's the extra beds? Where's the ventilators? What can we do? Um, let's get proactive. And frankly, I'm having a hard time getting any information as to what we even need. I've got some connections there. I can make phone calls. I got the Rolodex, and I would love to start trying to get some of that help, but I can't even get the county commissioners to call me back.
Well, Eric, I got to let you run, but I do want to thank you for your time this morning. And I imagine before Election Day, we'll be talking more than once, and probably I hope, on better terms when it comes to people's health too, as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Bill, and I'm absolutely looking forward to coming on and talking about some of these the political issues and what I'd like to do in that state house.
Well, take care of yourself, look after the family, and we'll get together again sometime down the road.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Take care now. Eric Parker joining us this morning from Haley on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you, too, on Magic Valley this morning until 10 a.m. We're at 37, coming up on almost 8:58. Coming up just after the news, we're going to be talking with Wayne Hoffman from the Idaho Freedom Foundation. We're getting a lot of good contrarian voices on the air today. Wayne had a post over the weekend. I was reading it, and he says that in looking at the orders from the governor when it comes to dealing with coronavirus, the Freedom Foundation is concerned that perhaps the governor is not just violating state constitution, but maybe the national constitution as well. That'll be along in just a few minutes following the news on KLIX.